Hello friends, back again in the same spot because I batch filmed every video this month. Today is going to be my wrap up for July and August. First up was Hemlock Grove by Brian McGreevy. I read this one for Summerween in July. I did not like this book. I gave it 2 stars, 2.5 maybe. We follow Roman and Peter. Roman and Peter. Roman is an Oupir or a vampire, and Peter is a werewolf, and they kind of team up to solve some murders of girls that have been happening in their town. And several years ago, I watched the Netflix show based on this book before I ever knew it was a book, and I loved it so much. I do highly recommend the show if it's still available. I loved it, but I did not like this book. The writing of it was so clunky and awkward to read. It really made it hard to get into it, and I did not like it. The main storyline of the girls and the murder and all that was good, but we had this side plot line between Roman, his mom, and his cousin that just kind of felt completely unnecessary and needed, and it was just kind of thrown in. And the very last chapter of the book was focused mostly just on that side plot, and it was just, why? It could be an interesting point to have, but I think it probably should have been maybe a separate book where you can get a whole lot more detail and reasons behind it. That I think would have been a lot more interesting, but not just to have it thrown in as a side piece to this other book that you were writing. No, not for me. Did not like it. And then I read A Pinch of Magic by Michelle Harrison. I very much enjoyed this one. It got 4 stars from me. This is a middle grade fantasy, and it follows the Witterson family, and the women of this family are cursed. They are not allowed to leave their home island or home country, I guess. It's made of certain islands, their country is. So they can't go outside the bounds of their country or they die. And this family has in their possession 3 magical objects that is thought to have been sort of a consolation prize for not being able to leave, to being cursed. But it turns in to be much more than that. And the 3 sisters want to break the curse and free their family, and so they go off on this adventure to try and do just that. And it really is a wonderful story. It was a great story of the love and loyalty between sisters. It was a great sisterly bond book. I really had a lot of fun with it. This is the first book in a trilogy. I am, as I'm filming this, currently reading book number 2 in this series, and I'm liking it as well. So I'm sure I'll continue with the 3rd one at some point. So yeah, I really did enjoy it, although I didn't connect to it or the characters as much as I have in other middle grade fantasies, but still overall very enjoyable. Although there is a content warning for this one, even though it's middle grade, there is suicide in it as well. So do keep that in mind, especially if you are letting a younger reader have a go at this one. And then I read another middle grade. Actually, I read several middle grades this month. The next middle grade I read was The House with Chicken Legs by Sophie Anderson. I gave this one 3.75 stars. It was more than okay, but I didn't quite like it. We follow Marinka and her grandmother, who is a Yaga, and Yagas are sort of these guardians of the gate to the afterlife, so they help the dead cross over and complete their journey. And Marinka really wants to make some friends because all she knows is her grandmother and the dead that come to their house every night in their house with chicken legs that carries them all over the world wherever Yagas are needed. And so she tries one day to make a real live human friend. And that sort of spurs this thing that happens where her grandmother has to fix the problem that she creates. And so the grandmother ends up disappearing, and Marinka is trying her best to try and bring her back because she doesn't feel that she's ready to take on her role as the next Yaga. This really was, it was a nice story. I liked the idea of, or the story of the Yagas and helping them, and them helping the dead sort of complete the cycle and return to the stars. I did really like that. And I gave it that bump in rating, that 0.75 bump, because there was one part in the story that I did not see coming. So I'm going to give it that as a good surprise there. But other than that, it was just kind of okay. It felt, the story to me, the ending, it felt very incomplete. Like it just didn't wrap up, in my opinion, or at least not wrap up in the way that I would have felt more satisfied in having. So it was just kind of meh. And then the last middle grade that I read in July was Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I listened to the audiobook from the library. I love all these books, and they're always going to be 5-star no matter what. Alright, and then in August, I had 4 books on my TBR, but I only made it through 3 of them. The first book I finished was The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde by Junot Diaz. 3 stars, maybe? I did not care for this one. It loosely follows Oscar throughout his life. He was a very sad boy. He's a teenage boy in this book. He's very sad. He's very nerdy. He really, really wants to find love. He wants a girlfriend. But things just don't work out for him. And this family is cursed by the Fuku, which is a Dominican superstition that just kind of like bad luck or retribution, depending on how you look at it and what family is having it and all the kinds of stuff. But it was not a fantasy. It wasn't that kind of curse. It was definitely a contemporary book. But I don't like the way that it was written. It was written, if it would have just written the story, it would have been fine. But there were so many footnotes in this book that I felt more like I was reading a history textbook than I did a novel, and I did not like that. And we also didn't know who our narrator was until more than halfway through the book, which I also didn't like. And it felt like it was more of a story about Oscar's family history than it was about Oscar, even though the title of the book was Oscar and His Life. So, I don't know, I didn't like it. I might have given it 3 stars, maybe 2.5, somewhere around in there. I'll look at my Goodreads and see when I officially put, because I don't remember. But it wasn't great. And then I read a good one. I read The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This was an absolutely beautiful book. It follows this magical circus that kind of just appears only at night in random cities around the world. Nobody ever really knows where it's going to be next. It just kind of appears as if by magic. And we follow the circus workers, 2 in particular. We follow Celia and Marco from childhood into adulthood. It spans a very long time. These 2 are unwillingly thrown into this magical competition to see who could win. And whoever loses actually ends up dying. But that whole plot, while that was the plot of the whole book, they do end up falling in love and things like that. And all that's on the back cover, so it's not a spoiler. But that's not really what, at least I don't find that's really what this book is about. This book is, while I did like the plot, it was a nice plot, I liked all the characters, but what I really, really loved and what really makes this book shine is really just the atmosphere of the book. It was very magical, but it sort of had this dark undertone weaved in throughout that really made this story, this whole book, so enchanting. And I think that's what I really loved about it, not necessarily the story itself or the characters. It was just the feeling that the book gave. It was so just enchanting. There's no other way to describe it. It was very autumnal and dark yet magical and a little bit whimsical, but it was just absolutely beautiful. I even liked the look of the book. It kind of, the pages looked sort of like a manuscript of some kind that made it feel even more magical. I really, really like this one. Not quite a 5-star, but it was a 4-star for sure. The last book I was able to finish in August was a middle grade, which is Wildwood by Colin Meloy. This was an adorable little story. It follows Prue and her friend Curtis. And Prue's little brother is one day abducted by a murder of crows, and it's carried off into the impassable wilderness, which is a forest right in the middle of Portland, Oregon. And most people can't go into the woods. There's something about it. We don't know why or what, but people just don't go into the woods. They don't. And if they do, they certainly never come back. But Prue sees her sister, or her brother, not her sister, sees her brother being carried off by these crows into the woods, and so she has to go and get him. And so she and her friend Curtis go into the wood to rescue her brother. And of course, things happen and it spirals out of control, and all these different things are happening. It's quite political in that they go on an adventure to save her brother, but it ends up helping to save the wood itself, the country, the Wildwood. So overall, this was a very whimsical story. I think that was my favorite part about it, was how whimsical it was. It was magical. The forest was full of talking animals and people kind of all living together in one society, although it was technically fractured. So it was really enjoyable. I gave this one a 4 stars as well. I did really enjoy it. And I think, yeah, that's it, because I didn't finish my last book of that month. So I thank you so much for being here, and I hope that means I see you soon.